Hello, Americans. We must understand ourselves, nature shows, as a hypernative volume science that is abridged. It has appreciation for the difference between a president and a chief, and how that is compatible and not compatible. We have to have proper reception of American history. How that has been denied is how this employed the known voices A through Z to entertain other things, others, ourselves, blamed for, for for parts of the language of our founders that communicated left us the means to discern. They wanted us to explain and understand. They didn't want anything to do with the fake narratives about themselves forced to be pretended into databases. Because the crazy slavery laws against everyone sickly distinctly, it sustained that. It sustained other things, others ourselves, blamed when needing to counter things truly. But with they're self-valuing, blaming them as defenses of formal fact-driven nature. Oh, that's a hate crime. Oh, that's terrorism. We have not addressed the entrenched method worse than war crimes involved with the torture and extortion of our founders, let alone of the people hurt sickly the most about that. And half of our founders are the Native Americans. And the other half, there's three of them, is the founders that our founders had to counter extort at 13 positions who are already fact-driven nature enslaved. If you're not roles with the value nature systems that you can't, that's an identity of relativity to your smallest fact-driven nature quality aspect in nature as criminal insidious nature. And the difference, this breaching method before our founders were born, it employed use/s of difference. Its use in everyone increasingly rolls with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and or with keeping them blamed on other things, others, and or on selves, per its method of keeping simultaneously roles and needs in nature self-valuing things that it caused and maintains, blame the other things, others, yourselves. To be able to discern this, you have to be able to look through and appreciate the experience of what we know is true always about history. See, people want to keep it with the debatable. Oh, these are the qualities of a dictator, or these are the qualities of democracy, and the difference between that. Both those narratives within nature, certain type of victim/hyper victim, that other communicated for our founders. Use of knowledge of good and evil. Only part, in other words, people force you to entertain. The science is abridged and relying and needing upon those political convictions in natures by the experts of the religions that can't defend themselves and afford to retract the short words of anyone regarding proper reception of religious books like the Old Testament or the Quran, which both have parts right in the beginning that says it's the only thing that matters. So there's that nature of collusions there. Is where and how in Israel and in Palestine, for example, there are proofs because they have roles in the Americas, on Harvard Hospital's campus, for example. There are. So I put a link in here with Dinesh D'Souza, national/international CNN sources, national, international. They have people that train the intelligence community, foreign and domestic militaries, out of Central Connecticut State University, and the spots next to it, who have roles with predicate acts with facts with people from Wethersfield, Connecticut into branch. Certain type of victim / hyper victim. See, now the people that have to describe such because they have roles with wire crime acts and methods. People being called to police as such that D'Souza was doing a great job covering. But see, everyone's making the same mistakes since founding, and defenses of that simultaneously can't afford, in other words, to use as evidence the hyper-evidential. They've been a breaching method has been using names on all sides of criminal and of civil cases and overt criminal enterprises and private ones originally and still where they are valued by logic and with defenses of value treatments and identity, therefore name treatments, where this is a breaching method that uses identity as in other words, the natural system that revealed the republic for which we stand. It is not only more probable, but it is increasingly demonstrable. It was tactically, criminally, it was forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to be only remembered, defended, or attacked syntactically as collusions with the shell game with reason, where and how there are bound, there are 1/3/5 identities of possession over every verb / hyperpossession over every verb, as its value has more than one name. Because there is what is greater than everything. It is more finite than everything. And it is a conjunction / hyperconjunctive conjunction to everything active the way we can't be but one way. And that's positive also to the part of itself that's not juxtaposed with the little part /s we have, even only as Earth. Earth has an especial difference that has been left out by the logic of people pretending passions and emotions regarding defenses of their names or other people's names, while uses of the names of the sciences. See, this is right. This is why and how they can't afford to discern. Why and how the beginning of the Old Testament says, only right up to here you need to understand. And the names of the people of the sciences will come together. Boxing. See, boxing, martial arts, and wrestling, they say are grouped. And the same way, every volume, even if you make something up, there are 1/3/5 identities of the same hyperpossession that we could only ignore. More and more how we have been abridged from the hyper-native system, let alone Native American rights. So everyone says that from inside, while as shock and awe. Because when you speak about the Constitution on the bridge, you have everything parted, and you left out the difference /s, the way nature uses it, and that's how it is. Nature uses how functionally the hyper invisible but still discernible is distinct from the invisible but still discernible. So these are smart people. Stephen Gardner and D'Souza, and the sources as the intelligence community, countless, just one agency. They have all these different police forms. See, what is manifest are people that want to have natures of debate where they speak about the nature of the law. They left out how the breaching method employed the all location /s to be a syntactical conjunction / hyperconjunction, where and how manifest syntax works, where and how the hypernative, why and how we are individual finite as one identity of order, distinct from and with how we are grouped, locations, areas, ages, sexes, different /s that we also share distinctly, non-distinctly with other species, bodies, even insects have quality aspects in nature. A shared consciousness because there is one volume that is as value as nature / nature as value, a hyper-additional identity of simultaneous nature, where that's one of the things that can be appreciated, that they are constantly values 3 ways bound. They're like being a species body is being a sequence nature relative to where us being a simultaneous nature, and we are simultaneously being a sequence nature with the species volume being the simultaneous nature. And this is where and a part of how it shows us how more and more forever nature is being made as its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, which is where and how it teaches us simultaneously about exception nature and a special difference. And how where any subject individually grouped together. So when you're, in other words, you're a little kid, sickly distinctly, no matter who you are, you were child abused when you heard black and white with the law. And you knew this. When they're now some people explained it better than others. But everyone blamed it on other things, others, or selves. Key things that were also key things to other identities, the grounds, identity of relationship to itself and value of it roles, and names uses roles, and difference uses. See, we have the same color eyes. We have different color eyes at the same time. This is hyper-evidential. Oh, what's written? The presentation of questions show collusions, but you're supposed to have the right to remain innocent. See, but they already forbid this certain type. The difference between that, because overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the 3 branches of government and the exceptions, not as them, but as them, like it, so we'll use the word intelligence community. Could be, and then someone who's not, but in other words, they keep everyone, they have information. See, if you watch Judge Napolitano's website, or not website, YouTube channel, Judge Napolitano's YouTube channel, Judging Freedom, he has different types of experts. And these are people looking at things. They have to spend their time and lives to be experts. And they have to focus on different things in every modern country, as the breaching method knew they would. Using names. They already employed from some ancient times before modern religions, messengers were born. The republic for which we stand had already been forced, tricked, persuaded to be defended, criminally foreign influenced. The gods' narratives came in and they made themselves value that. They tactically denatured while helping. Because at the ground level where it goes off, they're playing games with a quality of fact nature as criminal insidiousness. as what could increasingly no longer afford. The short words speaking about difference the way nature needs it to. This kept and keeps a hyper foreign body needing, including against countries groups. Any grouping of countries that forms, it measures and maintains. It already has all groupings, defenses of syntax, functioning that can't afford the short words of anyone using what is constant and what is variable, with descriptions of instances and or of names. That's one of the things. One of the things that enabled people to take part with slavery and tell on anyone who's not rolls with it, sickly distinctly north and south, and to hide how there's revelations from how sickly non-distinctly too. In other words, and how there are means to observe this. We have black people's white eyes at the same time. We have the same color eyes, and we have different color eyes, and there are exceptions. Every individual knows, therefore every group knows. Exceptions in exception nature, and a special difference with this, and human difference that has not been appreciated as a science, honestly. And there have been excuses, and there have been, it's tied, how it gets away if you really think about it. Everyone had people that knew their names before they knew theirs, and increasingly that is exploited. And the difference of where and how at all locations differences, that is also exploited. And so how people get away with debating things that are not even debatable is also relative to how we have to appreciate criminal insidiousness and delusions, tactical delusions that the three branches of the government and that all groupings of humanity, they've all that voice themselves, that they are recorded having and having had. They want to have debates about Boolean logic, leaving out how long the databases were relative to roles with these tactical delusions, criminally foreign influenced, acceptations of the republic for which we stand, to liberate or not, but it won't come through an economic discernment. And for example, one that left out the difference between wealth as Americans or wealth as Americans that are more than one citizen, more than one country at the same time, which all names of all modern countries have been through systems since semi-ancient times. Use tactical terror, how from nature wants us to use our names, and employed the difference between overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of logic A through Z. For example, regarding witch trials still, uses of the word indictment with that, the Connecticut intelligence with the federal intelligence, intercities and interstates, there are certain type of victim / hyper victim, as is manifest in every modern country's name, where they are used remotely, have been used remotely, blaming other things, others, ourselves, for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. For example, such as extinctions. For example, such as the change of the soil, the nature of the soil, the existence of worms, the nature of the water, how it was theater, how the people want to have debates about that. The nature of the debate is and has been possessed / hyper-possessed. America's founders had to counter-extort at 13 positions other than human science, hyper-native, the one that goes by with evaluating that additional hyper simultaneous nature that didn't we didn't invent where and how the other insects and animals have quality aspects in nature, just like us, distinctly, but non-distinctly too. And and we didn't invent that about ourselves, and they didn't. So there's an additional simultaneous nature, and this is observable always. English was revealed to teach this. Other ancient languages were revealed to teach this. But each of the sciences are a sensory, like a sensor for programming that is not just artificial intelligence. It is tactically / hyper tactically, criminally foreign influence, and self-value used remotely that way. Where and how use of all location / s. This facilitates rules with predicate acts methods and natures at timed instances. Where and how the difference is applied, the difference of the identities of their innocence relative to the instances that come before them. They had collusions with uses of all crime scenes / s. Every modern nation's formal identities of law. You can't separate from how they are using predicate acts, methods, and styles pretending others, the same way the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and names involved with what is observable using the hyper-evidential, where and how other things others themselves are blamed for things that our founders communicated to blame on the breaching method that we're supposed to understand, where and how it sensed collusion with itself, therefore hurting other people, therefore and simultaneously blaming other people for other things or others ourselves, while self-valuing more and more the quality aspects and natures of logic's descriptions and of names description and of reality's descriptions, positive descriptions and negative descriptions as collusion with and as an identity of the ground, hyper possession that is also nations grouped. It needs its self-value to keep increasingly what it caused and keeps. Blame the other things others themselves. Needs to keep the nature of, it's a shell game with the exceptions too. It is manifest, even if he made it up. The same things, there was things about a joke that Dave Chappelle told regarding a shell game. So right next to he told it regarding a different state, but this is regarding interstates and intercities. There's a parallel where there's interstates used remotely, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. It's the same way grouped. It employed voices and as natures and defenses of it as styles to speak for why and how finite details. In other words, if honesty spoke for the law as the people or the government, the difference is employed by them or the people that are saying, oh, F them. In other words, this is on and off campuses, all of them, and the differences of them. This is a use of where the human species body is. Now an abridged science / S systems, individually grouped and together. the bodies of the human volume. No, that the suits and ties, the counters to them, and the exceptions, they're not really capitalizing. They're not really speaking honestly for security. Any term. They're using all differences like the religions. No, in other words, tactically delusions rock, criminally foreign influence takes at them because they need to pretend people. They've been attaching little kids and their family members to fake words, ties to other people, hiding behind how countries used all locations like the campuses before our founders were born. The intelligence in there and there. Oh, the name, who knows more about, oh, you know more about me than about Hitler and that and that. They leave out how all those sides were victims of the same thing too. You don't leave that out, especially when there's peace, because only criminal insidiousness nature is peace. There's a difference between peace and hyper peace. Because there's a difference between truths that can be used for lies by themselves or others. There's increasingly keeping foreign names out. People using, there's collusions with all. It shows, in other words, the difference between who's guilt with this, that, the uses of people's names, and then defenses of that. Like with the viral things and our names uses with the pandemics and things, and regarding the differences between people with sides of that or reactions to that, like in the background with the intelligence agencies and with their campuses. Central Connecticut State University and all campuses communicate other than they could afford to have discerned as a certain type of victim / hyper victim by a method that knew that it was part of an answer. Could you measure and maintain them blaming other things, others, or self, and or valuing others doing that, having done that, individually grouped together. This is also relative to groupthink, which was reported by Fox News or CNN during the Gulf War. And I started watching sometimes MSNBC too. They had a Donald Rumsfeld reported by Fox News and CNN with the phrase groupthink. See, because this is the difference between the overt criminal enterprises as criminal insidiousness, self-value, or the private ones, or the interbranch, or the intelligence. It's part of a shell game where the game is with subjects, where the game is with predicate acts. But this is where the game stays about hyper-predicate acts, which is worse than war crimes. So, from the suburbs were designed for the torture and extortion of America's founders, who had to counter extort the other founders. And they were only capable of it because they were, for the same reason the Native Americans had to fight with the Native Americans, syntactically, where they wouldn't have fought with each other and there would have been evolution with each other, and there are proofs that nature had already shown. Humanity, why and how it wants us and needs us to be grouped and needs us to be independent simultaneously, to be appreciating a course about difference, that this is criminally re-engineered use of it, /s. Complete remote possession /s of the identity defenses, names, defenses, uses, relatively to recorded conscious uses of names in all sides of criminal and of civil cases, leading up to and in those cases, including in the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center attack, the towers right before the attack, long-term leading up to it, short-term leading up to it, whole bunch of different ways. These are people involved with measuring and maintaining from off all campuses. It facilitates people to use truths for lies. In the backgrounds, where and how it facilitates and maintains uses all sides of cases and the names and the difference of when and how, because all cases were to use criminally reported. They were to use the databases as collusions at the crime scene / hypercrime scene, which is relative. There's relativity. That it is an identity of hyper-relativity directing us to use and to explain all the hyper-evidential proofs that there are conscious needs to keep blame to other things, others, ourselves. Why and how we have black pupils, whites of eyes, with nature communicating to us what a white and black is about. And that also comes with nature demonstrating there's a breaching method involved with treatments of positive and negative formally by the formal speakers, the formal stewards of positive and negative value treatments, therefore names treatments. And the difference between that and overt criminal enterprises is manifest per where and how there is a singular method that uses all location /s, exploiting how we are syntactically manifest, tactical ulterior, from how we are forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to self-value ourselves with uses of our country's names, our locations, areas, states' names, our schools' names, our names, the names of everyone around us. This method consciously employed the differences of all these different criminal enterprises, private ones, countries individually grouped together, involved with differences, where and how names all sides of criminal and civil cases increasingly, and then further with other ones. They're needing to hide roles with identity theft, fraud, slander against every single person, where and how this method just keeps itself valued. It used remotely, easily, three branches of government self-valued roles with defenses of, shock and awe, reactions and or non-reactions syntactically, where and how nature showed them means when they were little kids. Everyone means when you guys are little kids. To use how the volume of humanity as Native Americans was distinctly hurt by crazy breaching method, with facts, with order under order's name as a criminal, order as a positive thing, used as a criminal insidiousness nature as a positive, as systems tactical ulterior from its own, which is relative to where and to how it shows us as being one identity of order while being five, and or while being three. Cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, three identities. Cell wall /s. It has its identity of relativity, to, from, as, with, and for water and gases. So don't forget. Simultaneously and differentially, but see, all things are its identity of system. Every identity of volume, nature shows, has a distinct identity of relationship to itself. And only this one hyper simultaneous as volume, where volume equals value as nature / nature as value. This is the identity of order. The identity of order to a cell's the complete name. The connection between those three parts are three identities of relationship to themselves, where that is easier to discern them as. Rather than cell body, you could discern with the microscope. Cell yes, how they are distinct with the chlorophyll. No, would manifest as this. Is it chlorophyll? That's another thing. In other words, but in other words, the plant's parts, the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, rather than seen as parts, three identities of relationship to themselves. Because where they are non-distinctly the same with the reception of the gases in the water, there's appreciation of positive and negative value nature is showing us the value. What causes positive value nature progressions, acts in natures, or negative value nature progression acts in natures, being its identity of relationship to itself as the hyper-native self system, only one. And the only increasing value of that equally increasing for what it looks like from inside a complete identity as a complete identity, where more of one distinct identity of volume inseparable from all others exists. So lift fists, boxing, and fight, but by rules. And by the way, where even who loses wins. Because evolution science that is not a positives that are criminal and serious natures, much less ones that relied upon by and as collusions with a real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts in natures like the World Trade Center attack. Hartford Hospital had roles with the intelligence community intercities. People with the Britain hospitals, all the hospitals. In the campuses, UConn has roles. There's nothing personal against them. And where they were, where the names of the campuses would and do want to debate things. So this is relative to how they are motivated. You have to understand remote uses of everyone already. That was shown they need to hide that. So they're shown needs to hide that by knowing people's names before they get to the location. Increasingly, there are connections between names at each of the campuses I went, as people I never had classes with, and ones I did, they attached me and them to fake things, building upon any appearance of weakness or strength. For example, positive or negatives always. They were employed by breaching method to be used to keep descriptions of identity science, now hyper-native pure, of the law of science, improperly told, and that defended dishonestly. That's all we have heard. See, they say the big lie. They're forcing a quality of fact-achieving nature, increasingly that is incapable of the discernment of people's premises formally. And because and that is increasingly collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And where and how actually more ways than our own people did. Retired and standing intelligence on off each age and nature of campus. They are being and have been used remotely, clearer than day. Criminally foreign influence, all election locations. See the difference between who's in office, who's that wouldn't be a problem if we had mandated law followed. We would have the order of the finite as valued. We have a quality of fact-achieving nature that would be able to tap into and utilize where and how every body of the human species volume, every country we're in, we know we're in a semi-ancient trap. If they want to debate that, it's going to show it too. So we have people trying to say, "Oh, who's the lie? Who's the truth?" They can't to show what they're communicating. They're communicating collusion. They already did. Certain type of victim / hyper victim. the difference between the people with the overt weapons and the predicate acts with facts. All sides in legal cases, the lawyers, the victims, their advocates, and their doctors know, and ones with badges, fabricating whole transcripts into databases while tactical delusions rot still at ICUs, at medical locations. They have people with identity theft, frauds, all kinds of roles. They have people with, at the same time, they have corruption with the bar. They're making lawyers. At all the places they make lawyers. Then they have to pretend, oh, well, not our place. That's why they need to get on paper. They switch names and forge names. Please, UConn, do what's right. And get the people with the Violet families and the ones involved with the Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill. Involved on and off the campuses with predicate acts and on and off the people's homes with sequence shifts, federal evidences crimes with agencies and foreign and domestic military. These are people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. Involved with all kinds of the police departments, the differences between the police forms and kinds, and their roles with KKK themed, black themed, Confederate flag themed, child defenders, leaders of the kids' force, and into religious spots and spots next to them, identity theft, fraud, slander rules, and it's nothing personal. So that's why they're leaving out the foreign names by the difference between the bottom up and the hierarchy, like former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, one of the ones recorded involved with other police departments, whether and the difference between who's guilty or not and things that no, because there's foreign bodies involved with the evidence of corruption, remote uses of all sides of cases, including the court remotely. The difference between that, and it was used in next to the World Trade Center. Saudi Arabia Saudi Arabia had communicated they didn't want to have anything to do with countries individually grouped in together, involved with psychiatry, as they have the intelligence communities, involved with psychiatry families, and roles with location, concentrated where they have roles with the interbranch corruption, and the difference between that and the overt criminal enterprise, the private one, because they employ difference to be spoken from and not defended as what can't afford to protract the nature of any individual who's going to use correlation by where and how we saw, we discerned distinctly what we didn't want against the Native Americans, against the colonists, against them grouped, and trying to counter still in ourselves. And we see this because before our founders were born, that's what had designed. So then we learn in college, too late, about how it was designed for the torture and extortion and slavery of our founders too. See, but and then some of the teachers, oh, but that's because one teacher is good or bad, and the difference is used, and exceptions are used. When they say the big lie, they're using courts and legal treatments. They're self-valuing precedents and statutes, readings, and self-valued uses of them. Tactically, criminally foreign influence / hyper-tactically criminally foreign influence. Misprision / hyper-misprision, and the difference of that. 3 ways at once, not just because the self-valued part is where and how it had roles with all instances, descriptions. And it couples what is really recorded by the police with it itself faking and having fake recorded things, and knowingly what other things were recorded. See, that's shown to them where and how they're used remotely. They're shown that they cannot go back and defend therefore, their Boolean logic, their use of their own names or of other people's names, all formal identities of the law's names. These are some of the things that we know where and how we're placed, is what our founders and nature itself communicates with us having black pupils, white survive. And from the age we know we are capable of using this hyperscope, which is true always, constant. So we know the order of the finite is distinct from the order of things active grouped, but it is non-distinct. And simultaneously, simultaneously, we know we have the same color eyes, different color eyes. Sometimes we have the same color eyes anyway. Sometimes, exception, nature. It tells us how to describe this. It's showing us the identity of and as scientifically the increasing value different ways of the discernment of there being a distinct identity of hyper-simultaneous nature as a constant. And see, now, this has relativity to exceptions and to exception nature, tactically ulterior from how has been afforded by the identities of the experts and roles with uses of the differences on all sides of criminal and of civil cases, as collusions also with the interbranch locations names, and with the difference of that, per uses of roles with predicate acts with fact and with criminal insidiousness natures of bullying logic, self-value, identity theft, fraud, slanders, indifferences uses roles with that, or that person is sensed. Even if that body is, or that body is sensed, even if that body is a majority of people, and that is adapted to, and that effectively maintains the breaching method of keeping the difference between overt criminal enterprises, private ones, in the three branches of government and or the intelligence tied to them, including military, all that. Including the foreign, how actually they're told they're using truths for lies insidiously. They don't have the right to lie. They don't have the right to hide how they don't have integrity at any campus together. All these countries with Central Connecticut State University, they've been at other campuses planting evidences next to them and then on off them with former director of the FBI, Robert Love, with on off Trinity College with the people next on all sides of Central Connecticut State University. Roles with predicate acts against our founding president. Roles what can't defend itself and afford to be discerned. Which Washington left us to demonstrate about those locations. And names. Church Street, Noel Weathersfield. Sought me out with people I don't know the names of that know my name. Some of the people I know, the name of recorded planting evidences with courts and as timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, as collusions with child campuses of grammar schools and middle schools and high schools with used for timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and people that don't even have classes together, and people of unions planting evidences, making fake exceptions completely, and as roles with corners of buildings real fast to make fake exceptions, where and how it becomes manifest and observable, how cases that were in the past had names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the names interbranch involved as collusions also with other countries, but also with worse keeping this outcome. This is leading up to the World Trade Center attack. Sense. They said it has to do with a whole bunch of people tied to Mazzucato families, people with the name Mazzucato, and a police chief Centron. And her daughter enrolls with people all along Route 3, involved with foreign and domestic, all kinds of sick things, all kinds of medical corruptions, interagencies, involved with online police, and their roles pertaining to be against, as the breaching method uses them remotely for even overtly. So in this video too, where they use overtly / insidiously, functionally, this breaching method employed serious things to be left out. It employed a torture method leading up to the World Trade Center in that context and sense, where it employed roles in the difference of our sides. Just because they're from our side, in other words, that's why it's important how many ways people are criminally foreign influence, factory nature, quality aspects in nature. When you guys are in the way of people with revelations by wire and how we have black people's right to life. And this is left out from the serious conversations, how they call serious and got away with serious as definitions of things like positive and negative that are exclusions against that. So we can't see the identity of possession there, the identity of the breaching method itself. See, a method has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously because every identity does. And how it does, the ancients revealed English to teach. So there were people in my sophomore class, my algebra class, who have roles with a principal child abuser and people with the interreligious locations leaders planting evidences and fake motivations by using sick language with religion and then pretending people know them and have ties to them with people around them, and they bring them in that and the differences of that involved relative to where and to how they use as observable already criminal and civil cases, the differences of the lawyers' involvements planting fake motives because they have foreign bodies. So increasingly, these are people. These are people that have been working with someone named Trantolo, and Russians involved with WFSB sources. And these are people involved with wire crime action methods of the agencies that also involve the tactical delusions of people getting in the way of people using short words like that. And regarding the motivations planting, they're lying about what they think about other people's motivations and their own. So they also have a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime involved with the kids. They also have timed roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones in unions used as insidious identities. Has roles with the roles, the difference between the military and the police forms involved with UPS that are unmarked police forms, and with all shipping. It's nothing personal against them. They also have descriptions of instances of names roles with people on off the Connecticut State Judicial Branch offices and on off Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, who have roles with predicate acts with facts and identity thefts and frauds with teachers in the intelligence community on off the campuses and on off the World Trade Center involved with the investigators leading up to it in that attack context and sense. Also as people involved with collusions between every campus I went to, regardless of the people that went there, now they have connections between themselves, which have timed collusions with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. They have an intercities placements at campuses who are increasingly collusions with themselves at crime scenes and or at the interbranch locations. And the mixture is also there. The difference between it is exploited. We shouldn't have to debate things that are true all ways. One of the things the breaching method is about exploitation of difference. So we can't even have that needs to pretend things are debatable, like there was the breaching method. Who's going to debate that there was a breaching method of with fact treatment nature and or with fact treatments in the difference with difference at a location slash S? They're going to have inherent active progressive to their fact treatment nature demonstrations of the same thing. So, but we have this gotten away with because they use wire crime acts and methods where the agencies fabricate transcripts. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, is one of the ones with his co-defendants and with their lawyer, Robert Chevalier. They have roles with Newington Police Department families, retired and standing, and intelligence community with associated with, and Rocky Hill, involved with Wethersfield Police Chiefs retired, involved with the same house with wire crime acts and methods. And so I've been asking, so you guys should not hide this from the new Wethersfield Police Chief. You should not have him try to hide it. You guys not try to duck between fake motivations because you have foreign bodies involved. You were involved on and off Hartford Hospital. They lie about what they think about what we type on Facebook. These are people with the intelligence community leaking their roles, including with Cuba, next to Hartford Hospital. And they don't even know what they leak. Because, in other words, these are people against their own through the fake sides are maintained. Tactical delusions wrong with psychiatry and their little pills and their fake counters about free speech. They have nature's fake sides of their fake exceptions, exceptions and collusion with fake sides on issues. They've made guilt wrong. They have collusions with Sandy Hook. They have with the kids' campuses, the fire campuses, and they have prison there. They have a Sandy Hook prison involved with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence there, as collusions with their worst patients and criminals, and against everyone, all innocents. Recorded, and they're hyper evidentially recorded. They're hiding this by planting more and more fake evidential as used remotely, like they were used remotely when they used the phrase, the big lie. About election fraud. Wethersfield, Connecticut's Wethersfield town offices has roles through administrations before Obama, before the Clintons, before the Bushes, before our founders were born. They have them fighting with each other, sickly distinctly. Otherwise, they're going to be hurt. Otherwise, they're going to be a nature of unity. That is collusion too. Otherwise, they're going to be hurt. All leaders, they're incapable of speech. In other words, per what we have to address with locations, areas, and states, self-value and used remotely with short words and with nature. And with employments of all ages and natures and the differences of that. See, this breaching method understood that nature employed our names and the voicings of the ground's names to be used where and how it shows us to describe. It's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous relationship / S to itself and as itself. Inseparable from the smallest part of itself is its complete identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that. Distinct here where Earth's difference can be ignored and we can be systems other than its own, but that is forced away from here. Not as death, but as lease of Hadith, as forced space nature transfer. This is the first counterposition of this ancient gaming system and of this hyper-intelligence method that uses lists, tactical terror, could be afforded, discerned by those who spoke for lists and for intelligence as victims / hyper victims. and where responses to it or non-responses to it have been employed by a breaching method. That is one of the reasons why and how it would be motivated black pupils for people to pretend not to realize that they are blamed other things other than themselves constantly as collusions at locations where constantly education and honest science is supposed to say, whoa, we are not yet free. The suburbs are tactically denatured. And while the cities were being born, they were measuring, maintaining who's going to leave that out and who's going to do, you know, what with what unfolded in the city is only capable of causing negative value nature progression, acts in nature, except unless the way that doesn't leave out the smallest finite detail, doesn't leave out the relations that come with knowing the simultaneous truth. Like we have black people's white survivors, that was left out. We have a hypernative system that is left out. Of course, they want and need to have the difference between citizens regular and Native Americans regular debated or in that self-value, leaving out the breaching methods uses of the difference, sickly distinctly to help or hurt, whatever it needs, syntactically, where and how manifest. We are with descriptions of proper blamed others. They're quoting things people said online dishonestly. These are the ones and how they were involved with planting motivation, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in the context and sense. So, in other words, they have descriptions with music of crime scenes where the intelligence community has that employed. For example, and with motivations other than actual that we have to address. Why when people know actual predicate acts and whole methods of them, what they say has changed. And this is also where and how criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that are simultaneously, some ways, tactically delusions wrought. Sometimes it's just the fact, human nature, quality aspects, nature, and use that as a location. Them pretending they have integrity or absence of guilt roles as collusion. What is intercampuses connected for people collusions? Central Connecticut State University connected people with like a Ray Reynolds a bunch of ways, overtly / insidiously, with people from that's what a kid from was in my kindergarten class. Never saw him around our campus any other time. They have people involved. And then off campus, one time they made and I went to Vermont with them. They had to make a fake exception of me knowing him. I had no communication with them. And except for right in front of the state police and Weathersfield police. Only communication I had right before that with them in the car. And that was Rhode Island State Police. See, Rhode Island State Police, Connecticut State. No, I mean, it was Vermont State Police. But the people tied to him, recorded confessed involved with that, also have Vermont State Police. Johnson in Wales has roles with intelligence community that is also with the religious spots involved with crime, predicate acts methods, identity theft, fraud, slander, federal evidences crimes, roles with remote uses of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and as collusions with the crime scene / hypercrime scene. That breaching method made it a hypercrime scene for anyone. See, they made slavery a subject. In other words, that was against everyone. But if anyone addresses that, which is the slavery, or addresses it outside of the way they had people address it, now you're entertaining. Then again, too, some hyper criminally foreign influence. And that was screened because everyone saw further how grouped the countries had motivation, natures, and interests that no one would address. But the breaching method already had that assigned, incapable of affording the protraction of short words proper, with nature's means to demonstrate to short word to each person the capabilities of short words, right? With convictions regarding what is constant and or what is variable. So we have to examine roles with all legal treatments and syntax nature, and capable of defending themselves and affording used properly. How reason uses what is constant and or variably true. So Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people, like with the name Violet and Leahy. They have Leahy family attached me to a Leahy family I never had conversations with. They attached me to fake conversations with themselves. One person put a clipboard there. I said no words with them. The one of the Brendan Leahy's, I believe the other one's his father. A number of reasons, because in other words, they have the same name. But there were also women with their family there in different capacities. And they have people with the name Dylan, who I recorded them recording themselves, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of abuses of elderly at elderly homes and of kids at campuses with foreign and domestic military. They have people with the intelligence community involved with the teachers I don't even know. One of them tried to make a fake exception of knowing me. He said he grabbed my wrist. He was planting evidences and fake motivations with foreign bodies. Has something to do with the people on off Trinity College, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have rules with untimely deaths and narratives by that with people involved on my street at the time who were planting evidences there on and off the campus, as names who also planted evidences on and off Central Connecticut State University and the spots next to it through time, with prosecutors and judges, as the names timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, their family members, and names next to corners of streets associated with the difference of that also employed. People with the name O'Brien also as one of the ones I know only because they saw me out to confess, demonstrate, record, involved with KKK themed, black themed, and Korean themed, and leaders of the kids roles with a whole bunch of different countries planting evidences at corners of streets for them, and with news locations. WFSB and Fox Connecticut News has people with the name Domain and Mendez, and involved also with people with I don't know their names, women that live, people that along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway and conjunctions to it that use my name. In other words, I don't even know. And ones I do that only know them, they were influenced to make, in other words, they have roles, all kinds of crazy things. They sought me out to plant evidences. They have roles that were timed evidences, crimes with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and uses of streets, corners. And then again, I figured out what it is about. These are a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital that are also involved with the principal child abuser, that have women involved with it, including interbranch, switching names, forging names, and various natures of organized crime with the kids through time. People involved with the shopping centers and the differences of the police forms, private and intelligence communities, and the information and the value of what is recorded too. Like when they see, if you watch on, I don't want to pick one out because, in other words, what is good and what is bad about it, you guys can't appreciate. Can't appreciate my evidences for it. It is hyper-evidential that Connecticut interbranch switch names, forged names, as collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases through time, and then again, and as collusions with Wethersfield police with wire crime acts and methods, and their families with identity thefts and frauds, fake transcripts, fake communications with me when I was a kid, now as an adult. Completely. And then I was just standing there and I said something to someone else and they pretended I said something to the police, for example, as one of the ones that enforced society's to collusions with them, also on Whiting Forensics through time, who has roles with various natures of organized crime with little kids, and roles with the intelligence community where they use the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, as names involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases. Also, there are civil cases used by the courts coaching people needs to hide their collusions and with the wrong outcomes in all cases, and with their roles directing lies about the actual outcomes in legal cases, because they applied that where they also have the differences between the different identities of criminal and seriousness, including the unions, family members, because they have the adults and kids needing to keep correlation nature of each age relative to the identity theft, fraud, slanders, and fake motivations per roles with foreign bodies. So Weathersfield police chiefs have roles with Koreans, also with psychiatry, involved with the ones with badges and ones with the military leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense, who are also tactically delusions wrought, identities of reason experts and identity experts. They're forcing fights between people and fake motivations, and they're forcing people. They're saying stupid things, and then they're quoting people saying they're saying sick things. They're not honestly caring about the sexual preferences of their kids or the relative statistics, the locations of those statistic taking locations have their sexual differences involved with the intelligence community that simultaneously leaks while they pretend other, because that's also used, the difference between that. The spots next to the state capital of Connecticut have a whole bunch of people who involved with the intelligence community, shows each age of people, other people from other spots, and makes people remember their names. As roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases, also the sources of all sides, and the difference of that, because of how the foreign bodies are also involved with the child abuses of each distinctly, and how sickly not distinctly. So we're supposed to stay with the hyper invisible but still discernible. Like the interbranch have been switching names, and they've been lying about their rights and motivations for it. So when I was a kid, people at Central Connecticut State University affected, when I was in third grade, I said the other day, second grade, it was third grade. They affected confessions to me regarding Central Connecticut State University. And that had come with other confessions in the other years before that. They're making people remember things, and they're leaving out. And people are using what's written in databases, which is tactically wrong, even when true. It's even where there's not a wrong. The difference between wrong or the difference of what is typed in there is used where a difference is exploited. So, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and acting coaches, acting professors, tied to people involved with overt criminal enterprises, and on Church Street and Old Weathersfield. They have roles with identity thefts and frauds and wire crimes in Weathersfield police and news locations. WTNH has people also at corners of streets along Ridge Road when they're obfuscating with switching street signs names with people on Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane with a bunch of judges from probate courts involved planting evidences and fake ties between people and their family members that work with their courts. These are also people involved with New Britain Superior Court increasingly, and their roles with Two Rod Highway and its conjunctions like Route and Two Rod Highway / Hangdog Lane, and their conjunctions like Route 3 and the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. So also there are judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic military overt criminal enterprises who've been planting evidences at three spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike with judges and prosecutors. Identity theft, fraud, slander. They do it and make it pretend they know you, make a fake exception of know you, like with the people spotter that are involved with confessions years ago. Ray Clough and Joe DeMoro used to hang around together, and they would make confessions. They try to be pretend I knew them from. I had nothing to do with them when we were skiing in Vermont, and I never saw them on middle school campus. They're doing fake things into databases with people from other classrooms so no one can counter. Or if they counter leaving out the foreign bodies involvement. In other words, we are shown when I was capable of discerning conscious uses of other things ourselves, blame, where and how we have correlation nature means. To blame proper, the breaching method. And this requires appreciation of how the humans names, like differences, like Native American. This breaching method was sustained upon them, forcing them to fight with each other syntactically, as the same side forced to fight with each other to how to counter, how to overcome, what to do. Now everyone's separated from the proper education, memory of it, let alone means to absorb it properly. See, they're pretending this is about sexual difference. They need to follow mandated law. They can't follow, oh, we're having problems because we don't like this person. In other words, they're not they're lying about the motivation of people when there are instances descriptions that are real. Let alone they're making them up too on the campuses. They have all sides in criminal and civil cases and the locations names of the depositions. A whole bunch of people tied to a Glastonbury intelligence community that have roles with professors I had. One that sought me out, begged me to confess and demonstrate, record, confirm roles with foreign and domestic with this with a what's his name? His son and I don't remember his name. Mike Pandolf. The one class I had with him, I had to stay back. I had no communication with him. Sat behind me. I had no communication personally with the teacher. God knows what they put in the database. In the class after that, those teachers have roles with the intelligence community with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids, tactically delusions, raw, criminally foreign influence, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and sick natures. They bring up sick natures of things in the furtherance of roles and uses of their difference and of other people's difference, criminally foreign influence. So this is also part of the hyper-evidential, where and how they got away with blaming other things, others themselves. There are answers to this recorded, but other part of that answer is how fake things are recorded into databases. So there's an intelligence family with Hartford Police Departments named O'Brien, and they're with Rocky Hill Police Departments through time. These are people involved with Sandy Hill campuses. Further, a whole bunch of people with Sandy Hill campuses also on off the state judicial branch offices. And with a girl, I don't know. Men and women and their kids, I don't know, who they make exceptions at parks and with the sides of the parks. So they pretend people are liars. Where these are people that know that people are not liars and they're pretending, oh, they already did such. There are proofs that they tortured Paul Manafort to hide what I caught them doing on off Covington Street in New Britain, Connecticut, with the intelligence community at those apartments involved with interbranch and other intelligence, foreign and domestic military. Then the word bait and switch involved with sequence shifting and measuring and maintaining fake motivations planting. In other words, as roles with child offenders intercities through time, including sexual, medical, and the difference of that at the same time, as ones with overt criminal enterprises that run in and hide life progressions with the interbranch with their doctors, with their motivation, uses their motivation, screen motivation. You see people speaking about their mental problems and their addictions and how they need places, but they're doing it dishonestly when other people speak about those places are used every day as fake integrity, where it's formally in the way. And the difference between them inclusion with their overt criminal enterprise, even on Facebook, this is recorded, where it's recorded true always. See, they pretend other by making fake things. They keep the outcome of as collusions with all sides in criminal and civil cases, then uses of that leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack, their motivations involved with that. All sides in the criminal and civil cases involved with that. In the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center, right before it, WFSB has categorical fake conversations with me about that. And with names all along Route 3, increasingly with kids and the intelligence community role training, police explorers, all that. Get them away from the kids. Get them off the word law. Where's this? This has something to do with this people named Dylan too. This Kevin Dillon. There's an Anna Dillon / Annie Dillon involved increasingly with Hangdog Lane, two highway names involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. They know my name, I don't know, and conjunctions to it. They know my name, I don't know their names at all. All exceptions, exception nature were used criminally for and influenced by the fact-cheating natures involved, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. Has something to do with the roles with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University that affected confessions in my third grade class. And I already had other relative confessions before that. See, they're not letting people know others' names properly so they can leave out the foreign bodies involvement. It also has roles with all the differences between those countries. See, this method knew that people from Korea, people from Italy had intelligence community that are doctors of psychiatry that had been putting fake things in databases with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and judges and prosecutors and their family members putting fake things in databases at shared locations together, like locations next to Hartford Hospital and on off the hospital, like with the police forms involved with that. So Hartford Hospital also has tactical delusions involved with hospitals across the country. And these are people that need to pretend passions and emotions by value of things like voting's value or taxpayer. You have to be a citizen. You don't have to be a taxpayer. They owe more money. The people who want to defend that logic, where they're defending their nature, they can't put that on paper properly. So they need to show them how to get away. A whole bunch of things, identities of industries and people, therefore, need to get away with things by pretending not to realize things, getting involved with other people with logic in the way of what is true always, not denying slave sequence. So there are serious things going on in Israel and in Palestine because they are being tortured, hurt, forced, persuaded, same way in America is to use our names other than they are. To use the names of the human volume science, tactilitarian, pretend that the forced equality of debate, the nature of debate about what's, not using what is true always. In other words, our sides have collusions together. And there are uses of them at other locations where they're attaching us to fake conversations about religion because they have delusions. They can't imagine other people speaking. In other words, they're fake conversations with me about religion because they're preventing me my constitutional rights, and they're extorting me. And they're pretending they're taking more money the way the Social Security. I got on Social Security because for legal reasons. Because leading up to the World Trade Center attack, I caught courts. And I got recorded proofs of it after the World Trade Center attack, verified. I only had confessions, and I had other recorded proofs of it, but that was from other instances and other names. So now I have intercities through time, time paralleled, time conscious uses of people before the World Trade Center attack who through time have been using West Hartford locations with Wethersfield interbranch, on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices. They're involved with Wethersfield police with the name Cololo and with the name Sullivan, involved with a whole bunch of other police forging and switching names and lying about their motivations. Because I caught them involved with sick things with kids and with Hartford Hospital before they forced me there 3 times for mental evaluation. They lied 3 times sickly distinctly about why they sent me there, including lying about my behavior the other 2 times to prevent me from getting response from the first time yet. And these are people with the name Leahy involved with New Britain and Hartford names next to on Zion Street in Hartford. There are a whole bunch of people involved with the fire department there. On the corner of Zion Street and New Britain Avenue, involved with people from Wethersfield I never had classes with who planted evidences against me, with people on my area involved with Wethersfield police who attached me to fake conversations with themselves. And they have wire crime acts and methods. They've been forging and switching names. They have extortion roles, and worse than terrorism, worse than war crime roles, which can be discerned where and how they attach me with WFSB to fake conversations with WFSB, with their investigators investigating their correspondence. People that answer the phones for them also have additional wire crime acts and methods. And they're lying about their motivations because they have a whole bunch of countries involved with this. They have women, judges, and investigators, and people that work for the full court and their family members planting evidences with child offenders, including sexual digital offenders of kids, where they're using the identities of difference and planting fake motivations for why and how they like people and things like that. I caught them with the principal child abuser too, forcing it roles as people who had been involved before that too. That has something to do with their roles with Elm Street and Rocky Hill, the various people with the courts, and that are also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with their family members on 2 Route Highway and where it runs into Hangdog Lane, having been roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, people I don't know at all, and people that sought me out to plant evidences, sequence shifts, and collusions with others with that, consciously fake motivations. As the people increasingly involved with the Wethersfield police and the courts switching and forging names and sequences. These are evidential proofs. Now, these are people connected to each campus I went to that are involved with identity thefts against me at other locations. Fake exceptions of knowing me, and real exceptions of knowing me used criminally foreign influence too, like something to do with Ray Reynolds and his roles with Rhode Island, with people involved with Rhode Island State Police and other police forms, and Vermont State Police, and people with the Connecticut State Police, also with Whiting Forensics through time, involved with wire crime acts and methods and other natures of organized crimes and drugs and medicines crimes with kids, and with elderly homes, and with veteran affair homes and the policing of it, and on and off it, and what they're doing with all the locations. They're not about our security. Follow mandated law, black pupils, for your branch of government who disbelieves. We need the who disbelieves act, because they forge names relative to the forging and switching names and planting fake motivations for it. Follow mandated law for them and for Judge Napolitano. Please, I asked him to get them onto paper to one name and get me off the fake conversations with the Wethersfield police when I was a kid and now. Let's get them on paper. Let's go. Let's get them away from the campuses too. The intelligence community is going to have to find another way to look at life, because they're going to get off the campuses too. Make sure they put themselves on paper to one name and sequence. I don't even know all their names yet. They should fear.